Here's what's coming up in today's episode of Circle Back.
Everybody wants to take the moral high ground, but at the end of the day, most people have and will continue betting things like this, even when they publicly state otherwise.
Unfortunately, I am not smart enough and a good enough bettor for CLV not to matter to me.
Knish, you echo any of the, some of the sympathies that are shared there?
No. It's very scary when I post an order on like a Novig or a Kalshi, and
it gets filled.
It gets completely filled. Oh shit, someone knows something that I don't.
Disclaimer: the content presented in this show is intended for entertainment purposes only. All opinions expressed are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of any individuals or organizations mentioned. Statements made about public figures or entities are based on publicly available information and are not intended to harm or defame any person or business. This show relies on fair use of social media posts, which are presented in good faith for the purpose of commentary and criticism. Viewers and listeners are advised to form their own opinions. Circle Back here on the Circles Off channel. It's part of the Hammer Betting Network, and it's presented by Kalshi. We love Kalshi here on the Circles Off channel. We're going to talk a lot about them over the course of the video today. If you guys do enjoy along the way, please make sure you do hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well for Circle Back content every Tuesday and Friday, plus additional content coming your way soon on the channel, which we'll leave up to a little bit of a surprise, but I know you are going to want to see. We're going to get back to the normal cast for the Friday shows, which includes me. I haven't been here for one of the Friday shows for a while other than the live show, so happy to be back. My name is Jacob Gramegna. I am the host on Circle Back. I'm also a producer for The Hammer. We have in the bottom left corner of the screen, Chris Dierkes at Flup No Lie, our resident one-time contest winner and professional sports bettor. In the bottom right corner of the screen, we have our resident college football expert, the host on Hit the Books alongside Brad Powers here at the Hammer Bet Network for college football content, Joey Knish with the lovely tag, I love Kalshi. I mean, I do as well. And in the top right corner, the fourth person who will be joining us for this episode is Storm Pig. You can follow him at Storm_Pig on Twitter. Storm, how do you feel to be joining the Circles Off panel for today's show?
Apparently, I am switching from the nameless, faceless burner crowd to the Circles Off crowd, and I'm not sure which one is worse, so to be determined.
Some people, I think, have come on the show and have benefited from showing their face and being outward like this. And I think some people have actually gone in the other direction where maybe it would have been better if they had stayed anonymous. So time will tell how it will fare for you on today's
episode. Who was the guy that did the circle? It was George, he had like a George Costanza burner or something on Twitter, and he did an episode of Circles Off with Rob, and his voice sounded like he was 6 years old, and we never heard from him again. He stopped tweeting after that.
Gambling Costanza, and he just trolled everybody endlessly, and then that probably wasn't the best idea.
No, he had a great 6-month run of tweeting, and then one episode of Circles Off, and now he's been gone for 2 years.
So we'll see how it fares for you, Storm. Only time will tell. But thank you again for joining us here today. Let's jump into the episode, everybody. Honestly, topics today, it was, I say this a lot, but it was so hard to trim this one down. There were so many good topics to discuss today. And some of the stuff in the chopping block later on, it could have very easily been full-scale segments, but we had to do what we had to do. But there was only one topic that was ever going to lead us off for today's episode. Same lead-off topic as it was for the Tuesday show, but now we have the man himself, Chris Dierkes, here to discuss it. So the first three tweets I'm going to pull up here are the same as the tweets that we showcased on the Tuesday show, but just to kind of refresh people, the first one comes from Rishi Betts at Rishi Betts, saying it's funny seeing the virtue signaling reactions to the Flup tennis thing, as if a single one of you wouldn't try to get a live money line bet in if you see a player walk into the net to retire, and don't try to come up with some arbitrary ethical difference. And this is in reaction to Flup. You posted some negative tweets in regard to our sponsor, Kalshi. And it was like, 30 minutes before our live show at Bet Bash, sponsored by Kalshi. You posted some negative comments in regards to a bet you made on what was, I'll let you explain it just a second here, but to my understanding, it was an event that was already closed, or a player was about to retire where the traders had accidentally left it up, and you were taking a shot on that and made a bet, and then you ended up losing a little bit of money. Again, I'll let you clarify in a second here, but just to go through the rest of the tweets. Man of the Vag at Glaze Police 69 says, this seems very shady on Flup's part. Dude bet a shit ton on a side that was already settled trying to squeeze value from a closed market. Dude's lucky they didn't keep his whole fucking bag and ban his account, to be honest. Shady shit. And the final one we talked about was from Andy Molitor at Andy MSFW. Flup probably shouldn't have tweeted that, but the folks trying to nail him to a cross maybe should chill a bit too. So there's some harsh reactions on the Tuesday show. I think we're all in the same sort of opinion that, you took your shot. We all probably would have done the same, and that's a whole conversation we're going to get to. But in the end, you kind of have to take the penalty. It's been a week. What are your thoughts on it a week later? Because you have deleted the tweets. And also, can you start off by maybe clarifying exactly what happened?
Yeah, so full context of everything. So I get a DM from someone on Twitter saying that I should bet on Coco Gauff because her opponent has withdrawn. I quickly look up and I saw an hour ago, so it's been up for a full hour, that the person that Coco was playing, I can't really pronounce her name, had withdrawn. So I had heard about Kalshi had rules that they settle to 100 cents based on the winner. I had seen that before, people talked about it, so I figure, okay, let me go buy some. So I go buy. It was clearly versus a market maker because when it you could just tell based on the sizes they're offering, and then when I bought them, they auto repopulated. So I buy it, but when I bought it, I got a warning notification saying like, "Hey, you should check to make sure this person isn't retired or withdrawn." So then I look into the rules, and the rules of the couch of it say that they're going to settle at the price previously before close or cancellation, rather. So I think to myself, oh, okay, I'm not going to get the free roll anymore. It's not going to close at 100 cents, but it's just going to close at the price I got, which was 90 or 91 cents. Then I see they close at 74 cents, which was the price that it closed the moment before Coco Gauff's opponent withdrew. And that's what the rule had meant. And if you think about it, it makes logical sense. Everyone thought that the match would be played, and at 74 cents was the exact moment that there was withdrawal. 90 cents was just people attempting to free roll and pushing the price up at that point. So the previous hour, people had probably been doing the same thing and pushing it from 74 cents up to 90 cents. But I've only had experiences with sports books where if you bet on something and it gets, like, say, for example, you bet on an MLB game and it gets rained out, they don't just play it out at like 50 cents or like half your bet back. You just get it voided. And I had thought back to the Profit X scandal like months ago, where we had a user try to do something and Profit just voided all the bets. So I was thinking to myself, why aren't they voiding the bets if this happened? This is a little annoying. So I contact Kalshi and I'm like, what's going on here? And I tried doing it like privately and whatnot and handling that situation. And they're like, nope, sorry, this is just like in our rules. And I'm like, well, I feel like I got screwed here. I feel like you should, pay me back the $32,000. And they're like, no. And I was just very mad at this point because I'm like, I thought that they would just, I've only had experiences where they just void. So at that point on, after the conversation with the Kalshi rep, I angrily tweet. And I apologize for that because after everything I've spent the past couple of days trying to really understand why Kalshi's made these decisions and reflecting on everything, and I have no one to blame but myself. Their rules clearly stated what was going to happen. I was preaching before. If you make sure you understand the house rules. It is my fault for not understanding the house rules before making that bet. I deserve to lose the $32,000. At this point, I have no one to blame but myself. And I shouldn't have tried to bash Kalshi because what I now learn and understand now is Kalshi really has no choice. Their hands are tied. They cannot void. And that's what I want to get into now is kind of explain why Kalshi cannot void. because they're an exchange, a common example I would use is, say I bought 100 cents of the Eagles, or 100 contracts of the Eagles versus the Cowboys at 40 cents, and I bought them from Storm. Then I sell those same 100 contracts to Knish for 45 cents. I've just profited $5. I bought it from Storm for 40, sold it to Knish for 45. And Storm and Knish now effectively have a bet against each other. If that bet game were to get canceled or rained out or whatever, and Kalshi were to void it, Storm and Knish, they're both would and walk away with zero, but I would still walk away with my $5 that I made switching, buying and selling. So if that were to happen, any market that Kalshi does not void or take down immediately leaves themselves extremely vulnerable to have bad apples go in and trade back and forth amongst everything and just screw Kalshi over for millions of dollars. So they can't void. It opens up too bad of a can of worms, and that's why they drew such a hard line. And it makes sense. I know, like Knish and other sports bettors, like I'm sure Storm instinctively think this is ridiculous. Why not void? But when you learn that, you understand why they can't do it. And then you might say, well, why don't they just hold it in escrow until the event's canceled? Well, they have events like the presidential market. They can't just hold that in escrow for 4 years. So they're in a really bad spot where there's just a lot of bad options, and they picked, in my opinion, the best option. And I feel bad for attempting to drag them and do this, and I that's why I publicly apologize for that. I'm fine with keeping that tweet up, my apology tweet up, but I don't think Kalshi wanted any of the negative attention. It sounded like when I called them, and I apologized to them on the phone privately too, that they didn't want it up. So that's why I've taken it down. I feel very bad about the situation because this is entirely my fault. I took a shot, and the shot slapped me back, and I lost $32,000, and I fucking deserve it. So lesson learned, and I hope that clears up to everyone as to why the situation happened, why I lost money, why they can't void. And unfortunately, something like this is going to happen again because there are so many markets. Kalshi is just not able to take everything down the moment it happens. Like take the Pope market. If the Pope were to just like randomly get nominated, they can't just have someone just sitting there on Twitter snap refreshing permanently because there's too many markets to do that. They're going to have a few minutes, sometimes an hour or two before the market gets taken down. And this situation will happen again. And people just need to understand the rules before they play on Kalshi.
Makes sense. Good explanation there. Why don't we go to you, Storm, on this one? Just because Knish was on the panel with me, so we were kind of embroiled within this. But from an outside looking in perspective, what did you make of this whole thing over the last week?
Well, the first thing I have to say is, Chris, you are on a speed run to the most public apologies in gambling Twitter history in the shortest amount of time, which is fine. You
what else
very passionate about things.
I do think it's good that you're willing to apologize for stuff.
No, changing your position based on new information is one of the best things people can do in sports, and I commend you for that. The importance of house rules is the number one thing here. Obviously, you took your shot. It didn't work out. For me, I think a lot of people made it a bigger deal than it was. And I told you this privately because you post such big tickets all the time. There's a lot of envy out there. So I think it turned into a simple black and white issue into everybody dunking on you per usual. And then, you have the reasonable people like Rishi, and I think Andy was the other tweet, basically saying, hey, this isn't that big of a deal. He shouldn't have tweeted that. And, that's the end of the story. But per usual, bet bash was going on. Everybody wanted to chime in with their 2 cents, get their narrative in. As far as the Rishi tweet, I think most of us would agree with that, especially Knish and I, the way that we bet, we absolutely would be on your side there, trying to take advantage of something like that. And I for sure have been burned in the past for trying to take shots at spots like that and not reading the house rules. Obviously different from a sportsbook perspective, but I think it's important, especially after leaving Bet Bash, trying to pivot more towards prediction markets, exchanges. That seems like the next big wave that everybody needs to thoroughly understand what they're doing before they hop in full speed, because I definitely don't know what I'm doing there yet. So if I don't, I'm sure a lot of people don't that are just as big or bigger in sports.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you wanted to talk about two people who, on the other panel that don't mind an angle shot here and then, you got the right crowd with that. I'm saddened that we all wore black for the Fluff funeral, and we can't really come down and, bury him for this. And it's funny because the one thing that I was really going to go in on was how ridiculous I thought this house rule was of no voiding. And it's like, how I've never, only dealing with, for the most part, sports books and that on for the majority of my career, and not having, as you guys are saying, kind of this new exchange experience, was thinking like, this has got to be the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Then Fluff, we had a conversation last night where he more thoroughly explained it and then explained it here publicly on the show. I guess I now understand kind of why they don't want to be left holding the bag in these scenarios. And that's a very, it's interesting how that kind of manifests now and how that'll come out publicly. Because, I mean, this is something that is, as you're kind of saying, so like a whole new world of what that's going to look like kind of in the new era where exchanges are part of the picture, where you kind of have this old model with the sportsbook where anytime an event would be canceled, like it's just a void, no question whatsoever, to this new era for, books like Kalshi and that, where it's going to be this weird gray area. Some places might handle it differently, and you'll have to be really in tune with how that kind of stuff is going to be good. So you don't end up with a situation like this where you end up, holding the bag for 30K because, it's like a new scenario where people aren't really sure how it settles. So I see it from the Kalshi side of thing, but it kind of speaks to just like, you're going to have to be very clear along with Kalshi and some other places and all the other places of how they're going to handle kind of these niche, unique circumstances that come up.
So it just seems like, we always talk about read the house rule before you bet. And if you don't, you can't be mad over the house rules. Perhaps in this case, it was just a bit of a misunderstanding for those house rules in place. Fluff, did you want to add on to something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Man of the Badger's tweet, in my opinion, is reasonably fair. I think Kalshi is in their right to ban me from if they don't want to have angle shooters on their platform. That's totally fair. I would ask Kalshi if they thought about it to look at my track record of volume. This has been the first attempt that I've done, and unfortunately, it blew up in my face.
Well, you made it public when it didn't need to be, I guess.
Exactly. No, exactly, and they're within their right. Those exchanges are in their right to ban people they deem is not good for the ecosystem, which angle shooters aren't, penny jumpers aren't, people that post the 99 cents on games that are coin flips are not good for the ecosystem. They're totally fair in their right. And that becomes I think that goes into the next topic we're going to discuss, which is the ethics behind it. Is it okay to do things like that? Should the exchange be banning these people? Should they not? And I don't really have answers. It seems like there's a lot of people that I respect on both sides of it. I flip-flopped my view 20 times in the last 4 days. I don't know what the socially acceptable and right thing to do is and these kind of things.
So as our segue into that topic, do you regret taking that shot? Not obviously you regret losing the money, but you talk about you need to take risk in order to earn in this space. Do you regret having taken that shot?
Yes, and I regret taking a shot because if I think about it, where my stance currently is I was such an egregious shot at someone, even though it was a market maker and most likely SIG. That doesn't change the fact they're kind of built on respect, and SIG didn't know. I assume they just had an automated model that didn't know that Coco Gauff had already won the match. That's just out of line in my opinion. If I'm taking a shot where it just comes out that Coco Gauff's feeling sick and I get ahead of him, that's probably more reasonable and fair. So I do regret doing that, and I don't believe I would do this moving forward. Now, if the court of a public opinion, because these kind of things and ethics are kind of built what socially is acceptable, things that have changed over the course of human history. If people say, hey, actually it's no big deal, then maybe I'll revisit it. But right now I regret it. Not only for making it public, but for doing the shot because it was such an egregious angle. Front running injury news or something like that, that's probably more okay.
Okay, let's dig into that topic now then. Let's go to what we have up next, because again, it was a big topic that stemmed from this conversation here. And it stemmed from actually the Tuesday show where Rob Pizzola, CEO of the Hammer Professional Bettor, was talking about his stance on this and saying, like, all these people getting mad at Chris for taking this angle shot. Rob said, like, a lot of people would have done the same thing. In fact, he said 99% of people would do that. This conversation was brought up by Vegas Horse Pools, at Vegas Horse Pools. So they really, it was a quote from like a wisdom quote. Anyways, he says, I've known Rob for many years, going all the way back to Bet Bash 1. I like him and I respect him. We had a great chat at Bet Bash, but something we don't agree on. I have lots of friends. We don't agree 100% on every single issue, and that's okay. Yesterday, Rob said something that needs commented on publicly. He was talking on his show about a guy shooting an angle. So that was you, Chris, and how 99% of his friends would have done the same thing. This is why this industry that we both love is going in the wrong direction. I talk on the phone almost every day with a bookmaker. We are friends, and we both can make money. We don't have to hate each other. This angle shooting makes them hate bettors. Rob, I consider us friends, so I must be in the 1%. I don't take shots. I don't shoot angles, and 99% of my friends don't either. We're trying to make the industry better, not worse. As a leader in the industry, you need to do the right thing. This was, again, on the show, and Vegas Horse Pools asked us to pull up the video. So that's actually exactly what we're going to do on the show right now. I'm going to play you the clip here.
First and foremost, people who do want to crucify him, not 99% of people who see a market open after the fact where they know what the result is already are going to bet it.
The sportsbook you used to consult for left up an NHL free agency market for what team a player would be on next after he signed.
Yeah.
Smashed it. All my friends smashed it.
Sure.
And
you know the risks that come with it. You know at that point that they could void your bet. Potentially they could shut your account down to zero. I mean, if it's offshore, they could fucking seize your funds they could do whatever the fuck they want, basically. So that risk is associated with these types of bets.
So let's go to you, Storm, in this conversation. Flip kind of gave his thoughts already. You already kind of mentioned it, but why don't you dig a little bit deeper? Like, you in agreement, you would have taken the bet that Flip took, and you would take this bet consistently at other sports books.
Yeah, 100%. I'll go through the Vegas Horse Pool tweet, just like piece by piece. Just talks about knowing Rob, like, respecting him, Rob glazing. We don't need to glaze Rob. Yesterday, Rob said something, blah, blah, blah. Okay, this is why this industry that we both love is going in the wrong direction. I talk on the phone almost every day with a bookmaker. So context matters here. I matched with Vegas Horse Pools at Bet Bash, and he is the customer support person for spot odds now. I think that's important to know because somebody like that needs to maintain impeccable relationships with a sports book. He's not approaching this conversation as a sports bettor. He's approaching it as somebody who manages a product who needs to maintain those sort of relationships. He moves on to say we are friends and we can both make money. We don't have to hate each other. This angle shooting makes them hate bettors. Yes and no. I mean, teaching a sports book how to play better defense isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. Don't need to get that far into that. Rob says, well, I consider us friends. I must be in the 1%. I don't take shots, and my friends don't either. I have a problem with this part too, because you don't know what your friends are betting. And if you looked in all of their accounts, I would make it a heavy favorite that they are betting things like this, betting bad lines, etc. I said it earlier, there's a lot of virtue signaling that goes on, and these conversations happen every single month about bad lines or taking shots. Everybody wants to take the moral high ground, but at the end of the day, most people have and will continue betting things like this, even when they publicly state otherwise. It's just, again, it's one of those things that gets discussed every single month on Twitter, and somebody always wants to be the moral police. But at the end of the day, everybody bets things like this. Sportsbooks always make mistakes. And then you can devolve the conversation even further into, okay, so should you not bet on a slow-moving book or recreational book if they're slow to move the line on an injury play? Like, where are you drawing the line? And it just becomes too much.
I mean, some of my biggest, I would just, first of all, like, totally disagree with the Vegas. I'm sure, like, good guy. I know he's doing the spot odds thing. I know he's respecting the industry and all that. And I appreciate you provided that context because he's not looking at it right now from a true betting standpoint. Some of my, just biggest scores ever, like probably the top 5 are all some combo of known outcome or angle shoot or type of edge thing that, like, worked. And so to me, this is part of the game. Like, I know everybody wants to think like in the purity of like, I made the number 5 and you know what, I bet -3 and it landed 4, and like that in this altruistic, like that's how sports betting really should be, and like the bookmaker better relationship and all that. In reality, for most people that even like want to win at a successful level, there's going to be some level of angle shoot, information market, new things that weren't out there that had to happen for you to make it or gain it, or that's part of your portfolio. So I've done it 1,000 times. I'll do it 1,000 more. If I want to throw one thing, devil's advocate, in there, it's on an exchange and you're doing it versus a direct counterparty versus a sports book that might absorb it. Do you want to make that argument? Sure. But I think then you can go down the storm of like, if you have injury information, does that make it? So I don't know. In the end, I think it can be a ruthless game, and this is just part of it.
Interesting, your take on that. You both support it. Flup, you kind of were maybe moving away from it. So do you have like any rebuttal to what Storm and Knish were saying there, or like what's your opinion now? What's your stance at this point?
Well, I don't even know if I have a fluid, a firm stance. It's very fluid right now because I think both sides have valid points. Like, I think Storm and Knish make great points, and others, like I was reading Rufus's tweets today about how, like, he wouldn't angle a sports book like Circa, who treats their customers fairly and well, but he would on someone like MGM. I think that's like reasonable, and that's similar to what Knish was saying with like an exchange where they're not a counterparty. And then like I would ask, do people feel differently because my counterparty was SIG versus a random person? It probably shouldn't matter. You should probably have treat everyone the same. But unfortunately, when your other counterparties, like when MGM treats us so much differently than Circa does, you do have to change your behaviors as well. And I think the most important thing that this is not black and white. There's a lot of gray, and as exchanges become bigger and bigger, eventually there will be more unified and socially acceptable lines. And I think it's on the exchange to ensure what's fair is maintained.
From my perspective on this, I can, Storm said, where do you draw the line? I think it's tough to say. There's a lot of nuance to it. I think when it comes to like peer-to-peer betting, like exchanges, because I think exchanges are going to be a significant part of the future of sports betting, I do think it's important to, in a way, protect that ecosystem. And perhaps in those situations, you could definitely make a strong case that, okay, this exists. This is a great product that exists. And in order for it to exist like this, you can't really take a shot like that. But like when it comes to sportsbook, like even one like Circa, like if I make a mistake in a bet I place, like, I don't know, every once in a while you bet like the wrong side of something or things of that nature, the sportsbook is going to offer me absolutely no sympathy in those discussions. So I don't really see why I need to provide them sympathy when a line is put up incorrectly, when they're not factoring in something like, I don't know, just something. There's a nuance to the game that they're not factoring in, something along those lines. I don't see why I need to give them the respect and not bet that when they would not provide me the same respect back. A lot of the conversation on Twitter has been like treat people the way you want to be treated. I'm kind of like, I don't know if that's quite the opposite, but like I'm going to reciprocate the energy that is provided to me. And if the energy provided to me is that the sportsbook is going to limit me, the sportsbook is not going to show me any sympathy for a mistake that I do, I'm not going to provide any of that back. So, I'm in pretty large agreement with Storm and Knish on this one, where like, yeah, I would take my shots. And I can see why you took the shot, Flip. Honestly, I don't think I ever disagreed with you taking it. The only thing is just, the only thing I disagree with is you have to understand the consequences that come with something like that.
When I said, I feel like where I should be continuing to get clowned on is because I took a shot, lost, and then whined like a bitch on Twitter.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what did you think tweeting was going to do? Were they just going to be like, hey, we're going to put the money right back in your account right away?
I think Chris knew we had a show coming up and just wanted to fucking.
No, honestly, what it was is I recall the Prophet X situation where someone did basically the same thing that I did. And the whole community like backed them, and I was
rallied.
And I'm like, oh, they're gonna like me, and maybe Kalshi will fucking refund me. Which at the time I felt like they owed it to me because I felt like their house rules were so stupid. Like, why wasn't it voided? It made no sense. Obviously now I changed opinion, and with the new information, realized how stupid I looked. But one thing I do want to say is it was funny at Bet Bash. I was at dinner with Jacob Vornitsky, the CEO of Novig, and I was talking about this. Is like, as like an exchange, should they be banning angle shooters, penny jumpers, and people posting that thing? And it's funny, before this whole thing even broke down, I was making the argument that they shouldn't, because fundamentally, I'm a free market capitalist. True and true. I'm not like communist Canada where they, everything's free over there and it's ridiculous. And I worry that do we go down a slippery slope is if we start banning penny jumpers, angle shooters, those kind of people, then we ban, hey, these people win too much on the exchange. They're not good for the ecosystem, because an exchange is people that are winning are taking from the ecosystem. They're actually not good either for the ecosystem. Should they get banned? And then is it only break-even customers? And then is it only like losing customers? And this might be dramatic, but I do think it has some semblance of merit. And it's just, where do you draw a line? If you draw a line and say, hey, ban all angle shooters, that could be cool, and I could live with that. But I think it's not black and white.
One other thing I wanted to add to the conversation, when a lot of those people say, oh, you want to keep the bookie better relationship, this is why I don't do this at Circa. To me, it's kind of bullshit, right? People who are betting bad lines most of the time are going to be fairly experienced. If you have that experience, you know which books are going to push those bets through and grade them and which aren't. Most of these people know at this point, Circa is not going to push a palp through. Chris is not going to push a palp through. And to an extent, even like your bigger, per head books, the guys with experience, I'm not going to name names, but where you're going to be able to bet a bad line and get it graded and not be able to get it graded. And most people know that Circa is not going to grade those things. So it's, again, more virtue signaling when people are like, oh, I'm not going to bet this at Circa because they're such great guys. And like, yeah, it's a great book, and Benson's a great guy and he's funny on Twitter. But that's not the reason that people don't bet it there. It's because it's a waste of time, and it's not going to get graded.
Makes sense. Really interesting topic to start us off, which is why we're taking a good amount of time on this one. Just to end it off here, some of the replies to this one, to the Vegas horse pool posts, came from Bronner and Kirk Evans, who's on the Tuesday show. Bronner said, no book wants you to take its money. Even if you win legitimately, no book is going to let you do that for an unlimited amount of money. The reason why books clutch their pearls about angle shooting is that nearly anyone can do it. Sportsbooks are going to be fine. If you angle shoot a friend, you're kind of a scumbag, but a sportsbook is not your friend, even if you are a friend with someone who works there. They are not the book, and they get paid the same even if you hit something. Kirk Evans, who is our resident sportsbook simp here at the Hammer, says, yes, angle shooting a friend equals scumbag. Angle shooting a sportsbook equals who cares. So maybe deviating a little bit away from the sportsbook simp mindset there, but it felt like there was a good mix of opinions here. It doesn't feel like there's a definitive majority on one side. So I'd love to hear the thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. What is your take on angle shooting? Where do you draw the line? When is it okay? When is it not okay? It's very good discussion, and I would love to see what the people in the comments have to say on that one. And speaking of Kalshi, that brings us into our second topic, which is on the Super Bowl halftime show for 2026, because the conversation surrounds who is going to headline the Super Bowl halftime show. I have the market here up from Kalshi. A lot of liquidity in this market. I feel $609,000 in this one. Taylor Swift currently given a 58% chance to headline the halftime show. Metallica is at 21%, and Jay-Z is at 11%. So again, I feel like it's a decent amount of liquidity in this one. Taylor Swift has been favored to take this spot. And there was a big spike after her appearance on the New Heights podcast with the Kelce brothers. And a lot of it, maybe some of it has delved from the Easter eggs that potentially were dropped over the course of that episode. I just think some of this is like I got to watch what I say about the Swifties here. I'm not a Swiftie, but oftentimes Taylor Swift does drop a lot of Easter eggs, which tease albums coming out and days that stuff is going to come out. And perhaps it is teasing a Super Bowl halftime show appearance, because for this article here from SB Nation, written by James Dator, hopefully I said that correctly, there is the sourdough theory, where she talked about sourdough, and sourdough is linked heavily to the city of San Francisco, where the Super Bowl is going to be played. There's the stream links theory, where she mentioned Travis Kelce screaming at her for 47 seconds. 47 was the 47th show of the Eras Tour, which was in Levi's Stadium, which is the home of the Super Bowl in 2026. There's the Lombardi Trophy in the background, which they kind of forced in because it didn't even fit on the shelf. They had to lay it on its side. That's a replica that Travis Kelce got for winning the Super Bowl. And everyone's trying to piece this together. But anyways, on this market in particular, let's go to you first of all, Knish. We haven't heard from you in a while. Any thoughts on this market whatsoever? Any thought on the craze when it comes to the Easter eggs with Taylor Swift?
Well, appreciate me leading off the real hard-hitting topics we've gotten to so far. I like when people get into like the weeds and the granularity of this and kind of some of the alt theories. It's almost like a little bit of when you're trying to cap like a random sport. So I appreciate the efforts here. Do I think it would make sense for the NFL to have, Taylor Swift, headline in the show while she's out? Yes, I do. Am I laying that new price on Kalshi? No, I'm not doing that because I think they can pull the rug. And some of these are a little like some of the connect the dots get a little bit of like into, crazed person territory.
Whoa. Let's watch what we say about the Swifties here.
Well, I was going to say, #return fire. Kirk's probably got some inside info. He's on, that's the next vacation we have for 6 months here for a Hammer employee is going to be Kirk traveling around the world this year. So, but I don't have, I respect the effort from the Swifties. But that's all I got on that one.
How about you, Storm? Any thoughts on this market?
My first thought is that we need to get the Swifties involved in sports betting because their decoding skills are much better than some of our favorite touts out there. My biggest takeaway from this is just I had a conversation with somebody about it this morning is betting information markets on these exchanges become so interesting because you would get, Knish, you could speak on this probably better than I can. When you're betting novelty markets on these sports books and it's information based, you get free rolled or they'll cancel bets or things like that.
Or it's like $25. Now,
now you see exchanges.
The entire game's changed now. 600K in volume.
Exactly. So it becomes interesting. And now you have to consider the CFTC governing part of things. Okay, who's allowed to bet information? When are they allowed to bet? How much are they allowed to profit? At what point of liquidity, is somebody coming in blasting an information market, taking all this money from people? And, when is that okay? When is it not? So I'm very interested to see how this plays out going forward with these information markets.
And any thoughts from you, Flip?
Well, I just rather wait to see who gets announced and then see if I can go and bet it.
That's funny. And hey, you could do that with high liquidity markets available on Kalshi. Maybe not in that regard, but if you do have a strong take on something like this or a unique market like this, like I said, over $600,000 in liquidity on this market. Who is going to be the halftime show at the Super Bowl in 2026?
Okay, I will say I'm glad we finally picked up real market for once. I'm tired of picking these markets that are like $4,000 in liquidity. This is actually somewhat efficient at a $600,000 in liquidity.
Well, hey, if you ever have any suggestions, I always ask for them. You could give us suggestions of what market you want to cover. It's not always up to me or Rob.
Fair.
Next week, I'll be on you for that one. And we'll have some more interesting markets to cover. There's always interesting markets to discuss with Kalshi. You can sign up to Kalshi using the QR code that is on screen right now if you're watching a video. At any time over the course of the video, you can go to the link in the description. Or if you're listening in audio form, you can go to the link in the description there as well. Again, Kalshi is a great product. We've been over it. Great product, offers a lot of volume in some of these unique markets and also a lot of liquidity in some more mainstream markets that you're aware of. Go on Kalshi, check out some of these markets. If you do so with the link or the QR code, you're supporting the Hammer in the process as well. Now, before we jump into our next topic, get to the next part of the show, we're going to talk to one of the new shows that's coming to the Hammer.
Jason here, and I've got something new for you. Starting Friday, September 5th, I'll be hosting Hammer Daily every weekday at noon Eastern on the Hammer HQ YouTube channel. Think daily picks across as many sports as possible with the sharpest minds in the game joining me. But listen, this isn't some boring everything's a lock show. We're leaning into personality, fun, and giving you the kind of sports betting content you'll actually want to tune into. Set your calendars, subscribe to the channel, and don't miss a beat. Hammer Daily is your new lunch break ritual.
Next topic, and we're shifting over into the pick seller conversation here. This comes from Pips NBA, at Pips NBA, who was my co-host on the Board YouTube channel for NBA content. Extremely sharp NBA bettor, specializing in player props, and previously ran a service where he sold those player prop picks. Isn't going to be doing that anymore, but brought up this topic here. He said, throughout my life, I've been in a ton of paid groups, some good, some bad. The truth, about 95% genuinely believe they're providing value. Most aren't, and they don't know they aren't. I know this as a fact because I talked to so many of them throughout the years. I know some great guys with insane ball knowledge who can beat props or low liquidity in niche markets, but they're not providing a good, valuable service. And they don't realize it because it takes a deeper understanding of the betting world. Limits, liquidity, different sportsbook timings, tracking, etc. I'd advise all of them to join other people's paid groups and actually tail the bets. Try betting firsthand from the receiving end, and you will figure out quickly all the stuff you do wrong in less than a week. So he didn't mention anyone in particular, but I think this, and I'm not suggesting that Pips is linking this to him. However, a conversation that has arisen on Twitter and in the Circle Back group chat is on the topic of Steve Fezzik. Fezzik runs a paid service where we feel as though it may not be providing value to the customers, even though Fezzik himself could be winning. Now, maybe not this year. I think he's down 76 units at this point. But anyways, we discussed, does Steve Fezzik think he's providing a very good service to his customers, or does he think he is not but doesn't want to admit it? Now, my thought is he believes he is providing a good service. Flup, you mentioned, I don't know where I think you mentioned it in the group chat. I don't know where you mentioned, but you mentioned you believe he knows, or he believes he's not providing good service, but he doesn't want people to believe that, and he wants to essentially still profit off of that service. Can you confirm that stance? And if so, can you elaborate on it?
Yes, I still stand by that stance. I was like flabbergasted listening to last Circle Back. Rob say like, no, I don't think Steve Fezzik actually thinks he's losing. I think he's, just a nice guy and, just sucking Steve off, which I thought was like very weird. In my opinion, Steve is too smart of a person to not know what he's doing. I don't see how someone who did win years ago does not understand that he's not winning anymore. He said so many things where he's contradicted himself so many times where he said like, I believe X, Y, and Z, then does X, Y, and Z. Well, how can you say that you believe this and then, or you believe this shouldn't happen and then do it yourself? You have to know deep down that you're just being a fraud and you're misleading and not providing value to your customers. I remember once he said like, what am I supposed to do? Not sell? When someone pressed him on why he was releasing a prop punt that had like very little liquidity, because in his mind he needs to keep grifting because that's his best source of income, so there's no other option. So that's why, to me, I think he's got to know at this point. He's very aware, in my opinion. I don't buy this he's just a nice guy and he doesn't realize what he's doing to the community argument at all. He knows what he's doing, and I believe he should be attacked for it.
And you're alleging all of this. Am I right?
I am alleging all of this. Yes.
Chris Dierkes' opinions don't necessarily reflect that of the entire Hammer Betting Network. Knish, what are your thoughts on this conversation?
I mean, I agree with this tweet 100%. Where I think most people, even like, forget Fez for a second. You're talking like your Discord prop people or any of that. They have like this gambler's fallacy or this like, this ego level of like, no, I'm a winning. It doesn't even like compute for them on the back end of like, I could be a losing bettor. It's like, no, I win. Even if I've given out, this one home run parlay from 9 months ago that maybe a handful of people in my, Discord got, that's the only reason I'm above water now. I've lost 80 in a row, but this one that I got for, 120 to 1 hit. It's not like adding up, or they don't look at it, or they don't believe it because maybe they've bet $5 on. And the other aspect is when you have people paying you for pick, you're not feeling the actual financial impact as much as someone who is solely tailing you. They don't have that financial income from the pick sales. They're just looking at their account and it's like win-loss tailing you. Whereas if you have, 200 subs, 500 subs, all paying you 10, 20 bucks a month, you're like, oh, I've still got plenty of income to bet with. It never really sets in that your picks might be losing over a long period of time. So I tend to just generally believe that a lot of people are, either delusional or in a fallacy or think they win. They actually don't. They don't keep records or any of that. And the other aspect of you're not on the other side of it trying to like tail your own thing. You might go in and hit it at XYZ book as you're releasing it. And then you're leaving, your how many people you have to try and get the rest. So I just generally think, for the most part, I mean, it's just nets back to it's really tough to run a good service and have your clients happy with what they're able to get down.
How about you, Storm? What do you think?
I'm pretty aligned with both of these guys here. I don't want to beat the dead horse of the all touts are bad. One thing I think that's good to focus on with this tweet is what he said about what it takes to succeed, which is, understanding limits, liquidity, sportsbooks, timing, tracking. And I don't know Pips, but it sounds like he's no longer selling. My guess is, he aligned with some groups or something this season.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what happens with the successful touts. Or even guys that post for free to a certain extent. Like at Bet Bash, I ran into Quasso on Sports, and it was the first time I met him in person. I had genuinely forgotten about him because, years ago, I encouraged him to post on Betting Talk. He had one of the best college basketball seasons of all time. Started working with me, started working with some other people privately, stopped posting. And that's just a perfect example of what happens to the guys that do have the deeper understanding. They pretty much get scooped up by, a group or just start betting on their own at scale. And the guys that don't and just continue to sell forever, it's like the biggest tell and biggest red flag of all time.
And from knowing Pips myself and working with him so closely, I mean, we did the show where he gave out picks for free. The picks were given out at books that were widely available to a very large number of people. Oftentimes, very often, I would say they were given out at prices that were available in multiple spots. If it wasn't available in multiple spots, then we wouldn't even track the best price available as the official record tracking. So if you were doing your own work and doing what you should be doing and maximizing your outs, you were getting better pricing than what was given out on the show. I imagine he was always very fair to people. So I imagine he was doing the same in selling, but from knowing him, he's probably making a lot more money betting now than he was from selling picks. And I guess it's a little bit more difficult when you're trying to find outs living in Croatia, where sports betting is not, you're not able to bet as effectively there. But yeah, I think there is a right way to sell picks. But, as you said, if you get picked up by a group, if you're successful, you can make more money in doing that. So it seems like that's what he's doing right now. Again, just for my thoughts on it, I don't believe Steve Fezzik thinks he's selling a bad product. I think he does believe he's selling a good product. So I disagree there with Flup. I do believe that most of the people in this space believe they're providing good value. I think a lot of times just ignorance is bliss. They don't track themselves. They just don't know they're actually losing the money, and they don't want to know they're losing the money, to be honest. They just don't want to be bothered in tracking, and they're just there for the vibes, and people eat it up. And hopefully we can learn.
I've heard Steve talk about so many times, I don't lose in NFL. No one would lose over this big of a sample, and he's down 76 units over a decent sample. It's why is he the exception? He's got to know deep down that he's not. So
every time he shifts the goalposts, it just shows you more that he obviously doesn't believe that he's providing value. He's just changing the narrative to continue making more sales.
So Storm, you also think that he kind of knows what he's doing here?
Yeah, I admittedly I muted Fezzik, term Fezzik years ago in his account just because it comes up so often. So I'm not super up to date on the latest with him. But as Chris said, what's the thing he loves to talk about all the time, that he's an actuary. Same as somebody else we know is an actuary. You have to be pretty smart to do it. When you're an actuary and you do shitty things, you're knowingly doing those things most of the time.
Interesting. I just in the comments down below, leave your opinion. Do you feel like the majority of pick sellers are aware that they're not providing a valuable service, at least to our opinion, are not providing a valuable service? Or do you think that they actually believe they are providing something of substance to the space and are bettering the space? Again, get in the comments down below on that one. But we can shift into our next topic. This comes from Moneybag at Get to the Window. And this wasn't the only user who brought this up. I'll put this delicately, and I'll say there were some rumblings about this before it was made public on Twitter. But it says, we really need to talk about the downfall of NBAgreenbeans, who is also a pick seller in the space, keeping with that theme. Self-excluded himself from Novig and is now shilling some shitcoin. LMFAO, what a fucking loser. So I think, and also the hashtag circle back, which is great. If you ever want to get involved in the conversation and alert something, use that hashtag circle back and something may feature on the show. So on this conversation here, the tweet got deleted, but I believe Brett Feinsod at NBAgreenbeans showcased himself taking his money out of Novig and putting it into a shitcoin, as mentioned here by at Get to the Window. And again, there were some rumblings that he had self-excluded himself. And then there was a screenshot of his Novig account where there had been no activity recently, and he had self-excluded himself. Now, before we get into dig further into this conversation, not a lot of, I don't think any of us here have much sympathy for NBAgreenbeans. However, I do want to point out from a self-exclusion standpoint, if you feel like it is a problem with the way you're betting and you feel like self-exclusion is the best course of action, I commend somebody for doing that and even maybe suffering through a little bit of this embarrassment. But for somebody who talks the way he does and has been such a problem, I would love to hear the thoughts of everyone here. I will start with Flip again, though, because there is, let's say I think you have more of a reason to have a vendetta against him than anybody else sitting here right now.
That is a fair statement, but in all seriousness, I want to echo what you said. I think it's very good. If it's true, I don't know, I can't know for certain.
It is the reports that are coming out. Yes.
Like, I don't want to say it is true or it isn't true. Only he can confirm. I saw him post it. Someone sent me a thing where he posted a ticket. So it's tough to say. If it is true, I commend yourself for being responsible. That's good. It's difficult to win on an exchange with adverse selection. And, sometimes you learn the hard way, and it's good to take that step. And if it's not true, it's not something funny to joke about. Like, I don't think people, unless the reports, I don't know what the information they have or who their sources are, unless they're very confident and 100%, this is not something you should joke about, because I don't think you should be joking about self-excluding from someone, because it's a very serious thing. I've met people before that real problem gambling, and they should be self-excluding. It's a very useful tool, and they should take advantage of it. So yeah, that's really all I'll say. Don't want to start any new beef.
Knish, do you echo any of some of the sympathies that are shared there?
No, I was in I jumped in a Nadu space this week, and Nadu was just chatting it up. I might have thrown this out just in the space as a little bit of Molotov cocktail, just to throw it out. Green Bean actually jumped in, shockingly, not very long after, and I know. For his part, he denied everything. He said no, he did not self-exclude. He likes this coin. I don't even remember the name of it. But for his sake, listen, it is what it is. And if that's actually the case, then you know what? I'm gonna enjoy the ride from the outside, looking at it. So,
how about you, Storm? What are your thoughts on this?
Let me consult the internal legal guidelines for circleback.docx that Rob sent me earlier. Yeah, so obviously commend somebody for doing the self-exclusion, but you throw all that goodwill out the window the second that, presumably you did it to go and put all your money into a shitcoin that everybody, I believe, got rugged on.
It's true.
So yeah, again, like Chris said, I don't want to start new beef here. Just one thing that I had noticed over the past few months since initially coming across Brett on the spaces and stuff was that, if you go back through his timeline, you'll see that the size of the wagers he was posting was pretty steadily decreasing over time. which, most of us who have been around for a while know that means, somebody's losing their edge, or, they're losing their ass and constantly decreasing their bet sizing. It's probably not a good thing. So, if he did recognize that he was losing his edge, it's a good thing that he self-excluded, if he did.
I was trying to find a good metaphor for this, but I can't really come up with one where I commend him for, going through this and self-excluding if he does feel as though he has a problem. But at the same time, the kind of character that he portrays himself as online as a originator. I believe it still says originator in his Twitter bio.
No, that's been gone for a minute.
Okay. Well, for somebody who had previously proclaimed themselves as an originator, who has tried to stack themselves up against some of the best bettors in the space, I do find a little bit of humor in the fact that he has self-excluded. But I think I can feel that way while also thinking that, okay, it is a great step for you to take because you knew there was going to be this embarrassment doing it. You knew you were going to get clowned on for doing it. But, to go through that and self-exclude, I think is great. And I realize the contradiction is what I'm saying here, because it's like, well, people are not going to want to self-exclude now because of how people are going to react to them. But in a way, I truly believe he has brought it a little bit on himself with the way he has acted towards other people, and in particular, you, Flup. And I'm surprised you feel this way. But go ahead.
With the Novik thing, like if he comes into the Novik arena, you've got real killers here. There's someone, someone in this panel up substantial amounts that, if you're going up, there's someone on the other side, and you're not as good as me. So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, there's a reason why you probably lost to Novik, and who's the real big dog? So that's just all I'll say on that one.
I will add in one thing. It kind of circles back to, the reaction to Flup's tweet is, and I could say this myself too, even Knish as well. Like, I would say the three of us could be considered lightning rods on gambling Twitter. We're very opinionated. We're very outspoken. Brett would be in the same category for different reasons than most of us. So the second anybody slips up or any of us make a mistake or anything goes wrong, everybody is there to attack. So I can sympathize with that.
And I like, to echo what Flup's saying, and you'll feel this, like, especially when you're younger and first starting out, like if you're beating Hard Rock or you're beating, props at some of the Liga, then you step into the fucking, exchange arena and you want to go head to head with some of the biggest people on the Kalshis, on the Novigs. That's a different level. And you may think, like, have that fallacy that, like, oh, I've been winning for years doing this now, a couple of years doing this. I'm on my pick. It looks great. And then you want to go toe to toe with some of, like, the real deal people at the highest level. That's a very different game. And that can be a rude awakening.
And I want to say, I'm not even saying I'm like the top dog or anything like that, but it's very scary when I post an order on like a Novig or a Kalshi, and it gets filled. It gets completely filled. Oh shit, someone knows something that I don't, and that's what adverse selection comes out to get you. So it can be quite scary, and you got to be very, very cautious with how you use these exchanges. They're a great product. I love Kalshi. I love Novig. I strongly recommend everyone use it, and Kalshi is great, especially when you do non-sports things. But just if you don't know what adverse selection is, read it up, please.
Hey, you know what? Just to echo this, so like we'll go with the when Brett did that poker stream, and I remember hearing some feedback that, like, oh, he saw, I got a little unlucky in a few situations or that, and then you hear a guy like Flup go through the and Storm, both guys who've been playing poker and like for a long, long time, go through the past hand history. Even for me, like I haven't been in the poker scene, and start like they're able to then retroactively and like reverse engineer how you played and why you didn't win and why you're not a winning player. That's the next level. That's not like I'm sitting there playing like with my friends and that. There's a reason you're going into these games and losing money against real deal people. And it's not luck. It's because like you may not see it, but there's just a different level of what people are doing to counteract like your skill set, and you're just not up to that level. You might get there, but right now it can be a real tough thing when you start going against real deal people that have been in it for a long time.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. There was a term we used to say at Borgata back in the day. Everybody would just say, it's JBL. It's just bad luck. And that's something that a lot of losing players would say, like, oh, it's just bad luck. That's why I'm losing. And you see that a lot with people that are, green, people that are new to gambling. And, Brett is definitely qualifies as somebody saying, oh, it's not my fault, I was unlucky, or, instead of taking a step back and realizing, you're probably outmatched, whether it's in betting or poker or whatever else you're doing.
All right, speaking of some of the big dogs in the space, let's talk about GRPWins, because you guys wanted to further discuss the stiffing of the Circa Survivor entry that took place over the course of Bet Bash. So the conversation started, or reignited, I guess, with Barry Levi, who said it's at Pirate Barry, said it's official, I got a hat, at Jeff Benson, at Circa. Where's GRPWins? Still time to join us, referencing the hat that you do get for signing up for the Circa Survivor. George said, there's no chance I'll be in the millions contest, or the 10% chance I'll be flying to Vegas within the next 2 weeks to get 5 entries in Survivor. Now, a little bit of the backstory on this in case you missed the Tuesday show. George got a room comped at Circa. He did have a seminar at Circa, but he had a room comped. He had a dinner with Jeff Benson, which George did pay for, but I think there was a limo service that was provided to GRP as well. And I think it was under the impression from Jeff Benson of Circa that GRP was going to make an entry into the Survivor. But George got cold feet right at the end and decided he wasn't going to be making that entry. So Jeff Benson, in reply to this tweet from George, said, there's a better chance of Kelly in Vegas, Taylor Mathis, Amanda Vance, or any of the Bet Bash atmosphere models showing up in matching outfits and knocking on the door of your sweet mom's house and asking for young Riley than that actually happening. I'll believe it when I see it. So, I mean, only Benson himself could comment on it if he's actually like mad about how this happened. He's at least playing that part online. But I really do love the way this is all unfolding here. Storm, you're interested in talking about this as well. Give us your take.
I think Benson has a future in Twitter Spaces. He seems to be pretty good at stirring up manufactured drama. I will say, George, I stand in solidarity with you. We did not sign up for any contests this year because by week 3 or 4, we usually forget to submit the picks. And then one year our proxy was texting Snow, and it was for the NFL picks, and Snow sent 5 college football teams, and the guy just flipped out on him and was like, you're a troll. So that was the end of our contest participation. Unless there was, some tweet or written agreement or something, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think GRP has become self-aware at some point too. I think sometime in the last 6 months, like something clicked in his head where he leans into his character at this point, and this is just like another way of, generating more attention towards himself. So I think it's a good play by him. But I agree with Benson. There's no shot that, he's spending money to fly back to Vegas.
He's going to go back after already having been there. Yeah.
When he seemingly makes such a big deal about money and spending money on things, it's no shot that's happening.
As someone who was, a neighbor to George for a few days there.
Was it connecting rooms? Like you really had
a room right next door. I'm dead serious. I wish you would have let me know. I would have just, for the content, I would have just paid for a Survivor entry and be like, let's chop it if we win. Same shot that I hit the Powerball. But I would have just been like, George, let's go sign up, $1,000 entry, call it the GRP Knish, mega entry, and get it here to get it in. So if he does fly back out, that I'll put that offer on the table for him.
Go ahead, Flip.
I gotta say, the GRP Benson love-hate relationship on gambling Twitter is one of my favorite ongoing stories. And I think Benson kind of deserves this because he deals with so much stupidity. I see all the comments asking,
oh my God,
begging for him to get something on Circa. Can I get complaining about Circa? And
it's like a DraftKings bet, and someone's why did they misrate this? That doesn't even fucking work there.
And I mean deserves it in a good way, not a bad way, just so we're clear, because Benson gets to let off a lot of steam on George, just unload. I find it hysterical. I love watching it. And it's also funny watching Benson just ratio George so hard every time he tweets. I'm always dying laughing. I love the relationship. I hope it continues. It's one of my favorite things.
Benson might really be the king of the ratio. He picks his moments, but he rarely misses.
One of the most universally well-liked people on gambling Twitter. Like, the ratio of people that like him and don't like him has to be higher than anyone else.
I think it's just not just, but I think a big part of it is because he's always very poised. He never really loses his cool. Like even in this, he never gets overly emotional.
I never lose my cool or act emotionally or act off of like.
You would never do that. You would never act in the heat of the moment, would you? So yeah, I love the bit as well. I do have to agree. GRP, I find it unlikely he will be making any Survivor entries. But on the topic of Survivor, there's debates as to the popularity of Survivor contests because Survivor Atlas, which is, to my understanding, a tool that helps you with your Circa Survivor entries, says Survivor hasn't hit the mainstream yet. Poker and fantasy took decades. Survivor is a better concept than those. There was a reply that says, how is Survivor a better concept? And the follow-up was, Survivor is simple but intense. Everyone gets the premise. It's primal. No convoluting rules or scoring. The payoff is huge if you succeed and you get a full week to make the pick from the couch. $100 million Survivor pool where every household has entries is the dream. We are not biased. Flup, I don't think you have much experience with Survivors or anything like that, do you? But do you happen to have anything for us on this one?
I might have a little. I do like Survivor Atlas. I have used the tool. I think it's very useful, but I disagree completely with his take here. Poker and fantasy have a big thing that Survivor doesn't, which is you can do it multiple times. Survivor, when you bust, you're out for the season, and it's one pick, a week. Poker, you can play poker every night. Fantasy, you can play it every week, regardless if you win or lose. And in fantasy with basketball, it can be literally every day. Survivor can never have that, so in my opinion, can never reach those same heights.
I would think whoever figures out. I tweeted a little bit about this, about how I hate the proxy thing that you got to go through, and then you got to improv. Whoever figures out the domestic national content, the legality. Captain Jack responded to one of my tweets. He had some more insight. I don't understand really what it's talking, but whoever can get if you can get a massive pool, whether it be FanDuel, whether it be Kalshi, that people can almost just like the Powerball, where you can end up having a Survivor pool that you can submit the picks online, you can enter it from anywhere that's legalized gambling, and that pot starts to get up to the $50 million, the $100 million. Then I think you'll have something that rivals. I agree with Flip. You can't do it. You do it in some different fashions than that. But for a true NFL Survivor pool to be that massive, I think it would have that type of draw to it. It's just the logistics of how can that ever happen? Will that ever happen? I don't know. I think it would be massive though.
I just think the initial tweet is kind of wild. There are enormous Survivor pools across the country, obviously gray market, black market, whatever you want to call them. If you follow the news, every year around the Super Bowl, they like to make busts on these pools, especially, in the New York, New Jersey area. And you hear the size of some of these pools and it's staggering. So for somebody to say, it's never really reached the same amount of popularity, I would argue I know more people, at least in my friend group, who do pools who don't really bet sports at all or who don't play poker at all. I think there is more of a broad appeal there than poker or sports betting. I just think it's a crazy tweet in general.
So I do kind of agree with Flup in what he said, where it's the thing that fantasy provides is that it provides the value over the course of the season, entertainment over the course of the season, where Survivor, you could be done immediately, you could be done right away, and you could be done 2-3 weeks. So I kind of agree that's where it will have its flaws, but interested that Storm, you have kind of the alternate take where you think Survivor is becoming a lot more popular already than some other things there.
As usual, I provide the correct take. Storm provides the wrong take. I mean, that's just standard operating procedure.
Well, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions, comments down below on this one then. What is the more popular part of betting, we'll say? Is it Survivor pools? Is it fantasy? Is it poker? Give your thoughts and opinions over there. Hey everyone, Jacob Gramegna here, lead producer at The Hammer and your host of Circle Back. Do you want to know the best way to support what we're building here? Check out our sponsors. Seriously, we are selective with who we work with. We only want to team up with brands who offer actual value to bettors. We're not shilling junk, no miracle picks, and no knee brace endorsements just yet. If you enjoy the show and want to help us keep growing, then check out the links that are in the description and see what we've got lined up for you. Every visit helps, especially when I have to upgrade Knish's mic setup for the 10th time this month.
I'll put it that way.
We've talked a lot about Vegas and Circa casinos. Well, let's go across the street. I think it is to Golden Gate, where things are changing. At Vital Vegas reports that, holy shit, Golden Gate is removing all of its live table games. We are never speechless, and by never, we mean except for right now. And post a screenshot that says, update, we received this statement from Circa Hospitality Group. Big changes are coming to the Golden Gate, and we couldn't be more excited. As the oldest hotel in Las Vegas, we've always embraced the future, and now we are reimagining our casino floor with high-energy electronic table games a pit unlike anything downtown has seen, except more excitement, faster gameplay, and all the newest machines. All of our table games, team members of the Golden Gate are being offered roles at Circa or the D, or the opportunity to explore new departments within the company. Meat dropped. This is just a crazy conversation here. I do want to first of all preface this by saying I commend them for finding jobs for all the people who did lose their jobs on the casino floor. I thought that was great because that was actually one of my first thoughts in actually reading this, because I thought it'd just be a cost-cutting maneuver. But Knish, let's go to you first on this one. I know you frequent casinos for more so the sports betting, the kiosks, but in seeing this, what's your reaction?
Yeah, actually, I walked over to the Golden Gate just because, when we were staying at Circa, it was across the street, just to kind of check out like what the scene was there. I mean, I know they put some money into it when Stevens bought it, but my guess is that they're just trying something. I know the D's got a little bit more. It's a newer hotel. It was a new build. Circa's obviously got a reputation. My guess is Golden Gate, probably the business is, not exactly booming over there at the moment. And they're going to try something new. The comp that I thought of originally was like when Amazon went to those employee list stores and it was like, oh, you're just gonna be able to walk on, grab your groceries, walk out, and then nobody actually went to them. So now they closed most of them because like people don't want to do that. That to me is like, I think some of the allure of a gaming floor is like to be able to like have a blackjack dealer, have a craps table going. So when you go fully automated, kind of feels more like an arcade scene than a lounge scene. I don't blame them for trying it because I don't think, as I said, I don't think that, Golden Gate was just popping off right now. It's not one of, when you think Circa Hospitality Group, you don't really think like, oh, I'm going to go stay at the Golden Gate. So worth a shot. Do I think it works out in the end? My opinion, no, but I guess it'll be interesting to see.
What do you think of this one, Storm?
It's kind of wild to me because if I'm going downtown, I'm not looking to embrace the future. I want like old, I want like grimy, outside of Circa, obviously, like, people go there for the events and stuff, and that, it's built recently, but I don't see how an old school casino embracing the future really works as a long-term plan. Like, okay, you're probably just going to shut down in a year when nobody goes there. I think you should be leaning into what makes downtown attractive to people, being affordable, having like that old school charm. It just doesn't really make that much sense to me.
And what about you, Flop?
I see like Knish and Storm's points, but I think so much of their revenue, when I say there, I mean Vegas and like casino revenue in general, comes from like slots. And because people like it, it's easy to use and you don't have to pay a dealer. It's cheap. I think this is actually a good idea in terms of like pure profitability. I think this is a very calculated decision. These companies are very smart. I think it's going to work out for them. I could be wrong. I mean, I'm not an expert. I would actually, in these situations, default to someone like Storm or Knish who have a bit more experience on this than me. But that's just my instinct.
It just screams to me again the conversation of like Vegas is dying. Like, I mean, just from being at Circa, it was great for Bet Bash, but like, I can only imagine if Bet Bash wasn't going on. Like, it felt a little bit empty at times in there. I know it's not like maybe the busy season, and I understand that, but like even going on Fremont Street and seeing how empty that was at times during the day. And again, I know it's not the busy season and all, but I keep going back to this with Vegas, where like the casino, the slots, the table games, that is the cash cow. That is how you are making money. All you need to do is get people in the door and keep them there. And you do that with better rates on hotel rooms, better prices on drinks and on food. And it just felt like like you're going to get price gouged on the casino floor, but you didn't feel like you were going to deal with that when you're trying to eat or drink, and that's what's going to keep you at the hotel. So I don't know, maybe this is an attempt to try and forego changing that, and this is a cost-cutting maneuver that's we'll see if it helps them. I don't really have a strong take on whether or not it will help them, but we talked about on Tuesday, like surely we have to go in the opposite direction where Vegas has to become cheaper to just be there because they are going to make money on the casino floor. They just need people to actually show up. So interesting conversation. Would love to hear more thoughts from everybody in the comments down below. Last full-scale topic before the chopping block. We have this one from DK_DFS. We talk about a lot on this channel because DK tends to go at a lot of what we would maybe consider posers in this space, people who are not selling valuable information, valuable picks to their customers. And we have Piccolo Picks here, who posted, if a capper posts a 20+ home run play in their 20+ home run plays in their Discord, they don't know what they're doing. You can win one play out of 20 by yourself. So essentially telling people you don't need to pay for someone's picks or go into someone's Discord for 20 home run plays because you can just hit 1 out of 20 yourself by luck. DK points out here, my brother in Christ, you posted exactly 20 a few days ago, and it's a home run list. It is a list of 20 players for home run bets over the course of the day. Now, it's important to remember it is a home run list, not home run bets. It is a list, as pointed out by Piccolo. You didn't read my post. A home run list is data. Stop being dense. And then I feel DK_DFS points out very correctly that there is no list. A list is just a complete free roll, and I'm paraphrasing here, but a list is a free roll. You can post a list to people, a list of potential bets. If one of those bets win, you go, oh, I put it in the list. All you had to do was tail that bet from the list, but if all the bets lose, it doesn't matter because it wasn't actually a bet. It was just a list of information. It's a valuable service provided. It's a list of valuable information that you can choose what to do with, but I think we have a better understanding on this panel here. It is just a way to free roll themselves. Knish, I feel like you've been like the most anti-pick seller we've had with this Friday show. So why don't you lead us off on this one?
I mean, as I don't have too much on this other than this is just the classic like free roll, like, oh, it's just data. Like when people are, do it, they're like, I'm just giving data projections. And it's like, even though I'm giving like picks inside those projections, it's like, oh, just, a funny, nice tool for people to use. But then if those hit or you have, oh, I hit 8 of 20 last night, he'd be out there just lathering it up with like, oh, our home run projections the other day, plus 32 units if you played them all. I didn't tell you to play them all, but you could have played them all. So, this is, I've changed my tune on DK DFS after he did, I forget what I trolled him for a while ago when it was something, but.
Was it Mikhail Bridges?
Yeah, you always remember that. I never remember that. But yeah, that was it. But he's doing the Lord's work here. And again, just one of those sticks of that typical toutish tactics.
So just so everyone has the context on DK, DFS, Kirk had a big beef with him over the Mikhail Bridges thing. So essentially, it was late season. Mikhail Bridges, good player, was going to rest a game. But because Mikhail Bridges has a very long Ironman streak, it was presumed by a lot of sports bettors that he was going to play a very small amount of minutes. So people were mashing unders until DK DFS pointed it out to his followers that, hey, you should probably bet Mikhail Bridges unders, and killed the edge. Anyways, long time ago, people have come around, including Kirk, including Knish. But let's go to you, Storm. What are your thoughts on this one?
Info touts are the absolute nut low. It's the ultimate free roll. You're just, giving yourself built-in plausible deniability. Oh, I didn't sell picks. I didn't cost anybody money. Well, your service costs money, first of all. Most of the time it's useless. This is not new to sports betting, but fairly new. It really took off with the DFS touts back in the day. And before all these home run props and things became, the hot thing for all these guys to sell, it was really the DFS touts. Like, oh, look at this lineup. I gave 4 out of 5 of these guys tonight. And it gets into, I love that they were talking about the guy who said to water down the parlays. Like, you're taking credit for hitting, 3 out of 5 legs on a parlay. That's just insane to me. And I obviously agree with everything that DK said. It's one of those arguments that happens all the time. And, one of Circle Back's biggest podcast competitors was arguing on the timeline the other day about, oh, well, we just sold tools or we just sold information. And I didn't get too deep into reading all of the tweets, but again, it's just like one of those things of like shifting the goalposts and trying to pass off the blame or not taking accountability for something. And it is, like you said, I love that you said free roll. It is the ultimate free roll for accountability when you're talking about selling information versus selling plays. It's the same thing.
And anything from you on this one, Flup, before we get to the chopping block?
Honestly, they think that Storm and Knish covered it quite well. DK's doing great work. It's always fun to see hypocrisy out there, and I'll stand by the take. I think this person knows deep down what he's doing is not right.
I in this case, I agree with you. This person understands what they're doing. They understand it's a free roll.
Okay. All right.
But I guess we still disagree on Steve Fezzik a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see. Hey, if he's aware, he's playing the bit very well. He plays it extremely well. He's a very good actor in that sense. The last topic, or the last set of topics, come to the chopping block. Now, I said at the start of the show, we've gone a little bit longer than normal today because it was loaded with potential topics, and some of the stuff in the chopping block could have very easily been full-scale segments. This one could have been as well because everyone on the panel was very interested in talking about this. This one comes from BarryHorse_29. Very well known in the space for sports betting. Very well known for very well known in the space, and I'd say mostly respected in the space as well. Says here, my North Star in life is rage baiting efficient market hypothesizers, and it's a showcase of his record when it comes to positive CLV and when it comes to negative CLV. And just to note for people that are maybe not just looking at it, or if you're listening to audio form, not a very large sample size, which adds to the rage bait because somebody did reply, less than 100 bets, what the hell? And it was part of the rage bait. But the follow-up here is, to be clear, I don't expect this split to continue at all. If someone has never heard of CLV in their lives, they are unequivocally well served to understand it and its importance. To the people who are not year -0 noobs or year zero noobs to betting, I assume a majority of people following me are this. My opinion is that the dogmatic closed-mindedness of CLV maxis cost them dozens of Bitcoins in lifetime opportunity cost. Not complaining, leaves more for me. Flup, because it is your claim that you are a top-down bettor most of the time, I feel like CLV is a very important aspect of what you look for in betting. So when you see something like this, what are your opinions?
I actually agree with Barry here. Think what he's saying makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, I am not smart enough and a good enough bettor for CLV not to matter to me. It does matter to me. And if you are smart enough, then the market isn't efficient because you're better than the market. But if you have to ask if it's important or not, odds are it matters to you and CLV matters to you. So I think Barry is right. I can't comment if Barry is actually better than the market. I don't know him well enough. But I think there are crazy sickos out there where CLV really doesn't matter that much to them because they're just that much better than the market.
And how about you on this one, Storm? What sort of work are you doing? Are you doing top-down stuff? Are you originating stuff? What do you think of the CLV discussion?
Mostly moving. I typically agree with you need CLV. A lot of times with people, you see that you're moving they're creating their own CLV, so it becomes a little bit less important. You kind of have to do a deeper dive into how things are going, especially if somebody's on a downswing and they're getting CLV. That's every originator's favorite thing to point to. Oh, well, I'm getting CLV. A lot of the times it's because they're creating it or we're creating it for getting their bets down for them. As far as Barry, it's a funny discussion to see because when he first popped up on the scene, I was originating baseball at the time, and most of us used to sit around all day waiting for him to play because the group that he was playing with created so much steam that there was almost value on the other side automatically every single time. And there was a group chat with like 4 or 5 of us every day, like around 11 a.m., noon every single day. We're like, all right, when's he going to play? When's he going to play? Watching the screen, waiting for them to move the line. So it's funny to see things going a different direction now. But that was 5-6 years ago at this point. So I'm sure his game has evolved.
And how about you, Knish?
Yeah, I'm assuming, but just look like if I'm looking at this, it's going to be football season. Barry probably putting this out there to draw some, eyes back to, kind of what he's got going on. So I think this is very strategic. I think he's a very calculated type. So, yeah, I think, he pops up occasionally with some stuff. And I think he was doing this to just to draw some attention to, what he's got going on. So.
Flub kind of echoed my sentiments on this one, where it's just like I have to respect CLV because like that I'm not originating stuff, so I'm not strong enough or better to not respect it. So if you get to that level, I agree with it, but I think Flub covered it as best as I can on that one. Speaking of being underqualified for a topic, I think this is one I'm quite underqualified for, but I will intro it and hopefully we can get some conversation out of it here. So this is a conversation that was brought up in an article by Advi Raja Prabhakaran. Hopefully I said that correctly. It says this morning, DraftKings and FanDuel's most profitable product line is at risk. Kalshi just filed to list player props and spreads on a regulated exchange. It's everything for sports betting economics. And the at CFTC has just 24 hours to do something about it. And the article says Kalshi swipes at Sportsbook's profit engine with player props and spreads, because that's where the real money is made. We've talked about it. I think we talked about it last week on the live show. That's where the real money is made for recreational books like DraftKings and for FanDuel. And there were some more comments on this one here. People enjoyed what the article had to say. It brought up some different discussions. There was a tweet that came up from Golden Pants 13, Golden Pants 013, who says, I really like the article Ati posted today. That being said, being a MM on RFQ protocol for the type of SGPs that would be competitive with FanDuel and DK would be a worse job than a bet bash atmosphere model. So talk about how difficult it would be to actually make the markets on these sorts of SGPs and stuff. Either the market makers will be pissed or the customers will be pissed here. So Storm, what were your thoughts on this one here? Because I know you were interested in talking about this one.
I loved that tweet from Golden Pants because somebody's getting the shit end of the stick here. And it's been discussed many, many times over the past 3 or 4 years with the proliferation of same game parlays, how difficult they are to price, how difficult they are to book from a sportsbook point of view. So turning that over to market makers certainly makes for an interesting game. I didn't read the article, but something I found interesting was I had a meeting this morning with somebody, another player in the prediction market game. And one of the questions I asked them was, okay, these prediction markets offer all these crazy markets, right? So I said, if you're going the same route as Kalshi and, you're going to be CFTC governed, how does it work with offering those markets? How do you get clearance to offer those things? And his response shocked me, and it was mentioned in the suite. He said, you submit it to the CFTC, and basically by default, they approve it. And they have 24 hours to respond to say, hey, we actually don't approve of this anymore. And I found that very interesting that that's how they handle offering these markets. So again, like I said, brave new world out there when it comes to this exchange betting.
What do you think, Knish?
Yeah, I'd say the only thing I say is great for Kalshi that they'll able to be offered a player prop. That's what the rub is because really for FanDuel, DraftKings, and that it's the SGP hole. It's the SGP viability. It's not really like the player prop itself. It's combining it with all the other things that's kind of driven the massive boom and the hold boom. How much of that are you going to be able to do, on the exchange? I don't know. I guess it's one of those we'll see, as Storm saying, new world. We'll see what happens. And smarter people than me will be, have to have takes on it or be putting this stuff together.
We are the dinosaurs of sports betting now,
Yeah.
Knish. We need to adapt or die.
And still in the same sort of lane here, Ryan Butler at Butler Bets says Robinhood will soon launch pro and college football prediction markets directly with the Robinhood app. Per Hood release. PMs will include all NFL and NCAA Power 4 conference regular season games. Launch comes days after Kalshi announced its own expanded football PM offering. So again, I think a bit of the theme for this episode has been the expansion of these sorts of markets, exchange markets, prediction markets, and all of that. So Knish, being our college football representative here with the Hammer, give us your take on this.
I mean, more liquidity is never a bad thing. I don't know, just in the general, like is some kid out there going to be selling their, whatever the 50 shares their dad got him of Apple stock to, bet Louisiana State for the weekend. I don't know. It's a little interesting to see, what Robin Hood getting into the game, but I think new players getting into the market is never a bad thing. Because one, more liquidity, and two, even at what we started the show with the flub thing, where there can be, I'll just say it this way, there can be more angles to shoot for a guy who likes to fire some bullets occasionally in that thing. So there's usually a learning curve when a new operator comes to a market, and there's usually some susceptibility. So the more entrants, the more I welcome it.
And give your thoughts, Storm, before we move to our last topic.
Curve, maybe one of you knows this. I think I saw some tweets saying that Robinhood is just Kalshi offering it through their platform and adding a higher commission. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But what Knish said, in general, celebrate having more retail flow in sports betting, whether it's prediction markets, traditional sports books, any other form of sports betting. Retail flow is everything. That's how the professionals eat. So we're always going to be in favor of that.
And the last topic here, I thought this was really interesting. Kirk Evans brought this up at KirkEvans0, who's on the Tuesday show, says this might be a dumb question, but does your bet tracking for a significant portion of a game and then the bet losing have any significance to it being a good bet or not? I think this is a pretty prevailing thought, but I'm not sure it has any significance. So if your bet is trending really well for 80% of the game and then it loses late, is that indicative of you making a good bet, or is it just you have to understand that, like, you have to understand the variant for the entire game? What do you think, Storm?
I kind of mentioned this earlier when we were talking about CLV. If you're moving for somebody and they're creating their own CLV, you kind of need to do a deeper analysis of their plays if they're losing, because their first defense is going to be, I'm getting CLV, my plays have to be good. And I've been asked this before, like, how do you know when it's time to move on from somebody that you're moving plays for them? And, something we'll start doing is we'll start tracking their bets, throughout the games. I do think it's important. I do think it's significant. I've said it before, I don't have as much of a mathematical background as a lot of people. A lot of what I do is, from experience and feel. So I absolutely agree that, tracking bets throughout games, seeing, how somebody's doing, like, I'll message Snow, and if somebody's struggling and, they have a big position on something, and him and I like often message each other at the same exact time. Like, this one's not even close, right? Like, this guy's just been getting smoked lately. And then you start looking at his bets and, early in the game, they're getting destroyed, and maybe they come within like a point or two of the spread by the end of the game in garbage time. And the guy's like, oh, you know what? We only missed it by a point or two, but that doesn't tell the whole story of the game. So I do think it is very important.
How about you, Knish?
Yeah, I think there is probably what I call, a massive quantitative answer to this, or maybe not even an answer, but a theories that you could go about ways of analyzing someone's, origination portfolio or how they've tracked over a long period of time versus game flow or game state, or those, the in-game prediction models of who's going to win and then back that out. So I'm sure there's big data ways to crunch and process a bunch of that stuff. From a layman's term, it would be like, if someone ends up, if I go through a guy who's sending me, college basketball stuff, and, you look at their totals and maybe like 8 went to overtime and you went 1-7 or had, 0-8 or something in those overtime games, over or under, depending on the variance. So then, you would look at something as Storm saying that, probably, the true ROI, the XRI was going to be a little bit better than kind of what it ended up as. But just in general, I think there's probably people doing this at a very advanced level that I can't even really like fully present in this manner or wrap my head around. It's one of those conversations you could probably have people in a room for days going on about like what's the perfect method or the true method to track if something was a good bet through game state.
I think it does matter, but I think it takes the right person to understand what does matter and what doesn't in this. But I do think to a certain extent it does matter. Your bet tracking for for a significant portion of the game and then losing. I think that there is significance.
Because on the flip side of that, you can also if you put in too many things that don't really matter into your bets about why you lost or why you're running bad, then I think it can have an adverse effect as well, of you maybe convincing yourself or, convincing a group that you actually should have been, this, but we're running at this. So
it's JBL, Knish. It's just
that's a great way to end it off, round it all off for today on Circle Back. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to our show. Thank you so much to our sponsors, Kalshi. You can sign up with the Kalshi with the link that is in the description. You could have done it throughout the entire stream, an entire video, but make sure you go to the link stream and sign up to Kalshi. Check out all those unique markets with oftentimes a lot of liquidity in them. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like if you did enjoy, subscribe for more content just like it. We'll see you again on Tuesday with the Tuesday crew for more from Circle Back.